Okay, so we're ready to go, right? Great clock. Use the mic. Yes, please. Should- fun?
Hello.
Okay.
All right, it's 3:00. First, I'll start by introducing myself. I'm Brent Ziegler, and I'm the president of your board of directors for Commitee Falls POA. To my left, I have Bob McGinnis, Dick Benson, Donna Aiken-Colfish, Brian O'Neill, Janet Sauthier, Ann Sanders, and of course, our esteemed GM, Jim Whitmore. I'd like to also thank everyone for attending today, taking time out of their busy schedule, as well as those on the Zoom presentation. We have a full agenda. I'm going to ask that everybody keep your questions to the end. And if you do ask a question, please go to the mic so people seeing it on broadcast can hear it. Okay, please mute your cell phones, and we'll start with Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, the first order of business we have today is to approve the minutes from the annual meeting, August 6th, 2022. Can I have a motion to approve those minutes? Second. Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Accepted. Okay. So the next topic on the, well, I'll go through the whole agenda first. First thing we're going to do is go through the 2023 budget vote. Then we're going to do the GM's general manager's report and update. We're going to go through and it be an update on the 4 initiatives that we have going, as well as the Natural Resources Stewardship Committee and also the Facilities Planning Committee have been very, very busy with lots of projects. So updates on all those. The next thing is we've heard your comments about our watercraft storage locations, the conditions of some of the boats and things like that. So we're going to talk about a procedure that we'll be implementing to keep control of those boats and those slips. There's also an opportunity for us to add property to our boundary. So we're going to talk about that. And we've also been hearing from you that you're concerned about rental properties inside our community. So we've been doing some work in that area that we're going to share with you. And then finally, we'll do the Q&A. And like I said before, please go to the mic if you have a question so that the people that are going to listen to this on the rebroadcast or on Zoom today are able to hear your question. Okay, so with that, I'll hand it over to Jim and we'll get started with the budget vote.
Thank you, Brent. So hopefully you all got the email that was sent out on last Thursday. The election committee did meet and certify the votes for the 2023 budget, and it did come in with a 68% approval and 32 against. There's approximately 700 votes cast out of around a little over 1,600. But the quorum that is required for a vote within our documents is 25%. So we did meet the quorum level for the vote. Brent already did this, but we will talk a little bit about this as well. About a month ago, the board had sent out some recommended changes they want to do to the board policy manual. Most of it, the 2 things that I talked about was a board liaison role changes, and then the electronic distribution of the Friday flyer. Those were sent out to the membership for comment for the 2-week period. That ended on October 20th. At a board meeting in November, the board did have a special meeting to approve those changes. So those now will be incorporated into the board policy manual and be updated on the website as well. So what I'm going to talk about on my GM report today are 4 main topics. We have our community clubhouse updates, connectivity, which is still a popular topic, security, and financial as well. So as you probably noticed when you walked in today, the activity and wellness site work continues. And our bid process is moving forward as well. The hill here that you see coming down, if you look on basically the left-hand side, that basically is the elevation. It's 3 feet. The building will most likely be about 2 feet above the parking lot elevation. So we are pretty close to being at our level where the building will be placed on that area. You'll notice probably in the next 2 weeks, we will have the building corners staked out. So you'll actually be able to see where the building corners will be on the site as well. And then we will continue to grade the land from the building site down towards this area in front of the clubhouse and the area on the back towards the clubhouse. We are continuing to make progress on the equestrian center and the Cherokee room expansion. The equestrian center, we're doing insulation and drywall starting there now. And here we're waiting on 2 beams on this left hand, well, it'll be the right hand side here. Those are actually were delivered today. They were supposed to put them up today, but obviously with the rain, they weren't able to do that. So hopefully starting probably Wednesday now, because it's supposed to rain all day tomorrow too. They'll start that final side of the Cherokee. All the materials for the framing is here. So once that's done, we'll frame it and put the roof and trusses on, and then it will go pretty quick from there. So we're hoping that the equestrian center will be done probably January, and this room here expansion will probably be done in February, the way things are looking right now. Our new F&B hours, we started those a couple of weeks ago, where we're open now Thursdays through Monday, saying closed on Tuesday and Wednesday, but on the other days we're open. We are available for both lunch and dinner on the other 5 days of the week. And we'll adjust those and look at those numbers as each week goes by. Any of the year-rounders also know that January and February do slow down. Even the people that are here year-round sometimes disappear for a couple of weeks here and there. So it does slow down pretty quickly for January and February, but we'll make adjustments as needed. Unfortunately, you probably saw the news that went out earlier today, or maybe you didn't. Chef John Huffenberger has given his notice. He is taking an opportunity down in Bluffton, South Carolina, where it's closer to his family, and better opportunity for his children as well. And also concentrating more on where his expertise is, what he likes to do, which is a fine dining experience. So he's working, took an opportunity to thrive in those areas where he enjoys. So anyone who's got to know John or knows what he's been done here since he's been here, he's made a great contribution to our food and beverage operation, and hopefully we can find someone equal or better when we go through the search again. So we'll see how that goes. So right now we actually have 3 people in the kitchen, main key people. John's gave notice till the end of the month, but we also have 2 long-term employees, Randy, who's most of you may know, and Mel, who's our other sous chef and pastry chef. Both of them are out right now on different medical leave situations. Randy's probably gone for three months at least. He had a total shoulder replacement, and Mel unfortunately broke her leg, and she can't come to work right now either. So we're a little short-staffed, but we will find ways to continue to make it work for you. We're going to go a little bit into this later, but I just want to touch on this. We have completed some additional storage areas at the Toccoa Dam and at Wanteska, actually finished. So we're almost done there now. Since I wrote this, they move fast. And then we'll begin to do a second level on some of the Ottagahi locations as well. So this will add approximately 70 new boat slips to the community lakes. So that will pretty much get rid of the waiting list, assuming everyone on the waiting list wants to have a slip. So we'll see. A lot of times when we bring a slip comes up and we go to the waiting list, some people on the waiting list choose to wait on the waiting list. So we'll see. But I think this will, really take care of the overall demand that's been out there for storage spaces. And then with the other thing we're going to implement as well should help inventory of the boats and the slips. There's basically 27 boats, vessels, whatever you want to call them, that really are what I call almost 100% neglected. Obviously, haven't been touched in years. We're contacting those people now, and we're going to give them 60 days to get their boats in compliance with making sure they're cleaned up and properly stored. And then the new agreement that we're going to put in place will be something similar where there's a little bit more teeth in it for how they maintain it, what the expectation level is for the maintenance and what happens thereafter if they choose not to comply with the new regulations. The other interesting thing is I didn't put it on the slide, there's 30 slips that have no vessel whatsoever, but they've been paying. What we don't know on those, we'll contact them as well, whether it's someone who might be a seasonal resident who uses the kayak here in the summer and then brings it back to wherever, Florida or wherever in the winter. So, but we'd like to at least have a knowledge of why those slips sometimes stay vacant. So we'll see how that plays out as well. On the connectivity side of the equation, cell tower is still only one provider is committed. Anyone who has different providers here will notice that, like, I have Verizon, the service actually gotten worse. T-Mobile has actually gotten worse. And the reason that is because AT&T is making a pretty significant push in this area. And Verizon and T-Mobile actually took some of their equipment off the towers. There used to be a tower in Penrose that now only has, I think AT&T is the only provider on that. Both T-Mobile and Verizon pulled their equipment off. So we are actually to some extent going backwards, except if you have AT&T, you're probably noticing that you may be getting better service than you've been getting in the past. So it's just going to be a long ride, I think, on cellular because they're spending so much money on the 5G rollout, which obviously helps them more in the urban areas than it does in the rural areas, and that's where they're concentrating their capital funds. So, so we all moved here to be away from it, so we're going to continue to be away from it for a while, it looks like. Also, our new public website should, well, I'm going to say that. We did get word back 2 days ago that they are finalizing the last edits that we gave them. So hopefully they'll have that turned around here in a few days, and we can, right now the tentative date was the 10th through the 12th to go live, and I'm not sure we'll make that, but we potentially have a chance to make it. And then once that goes live, when that goes live, you will see the same template. The look of it will still be like the new look will be on the private side of it, but the content itself on the private side has not all been updated yet. So that's what you'll see. The aesthetic of it on the new private side will look better, but the content will be the same basically until we update all that content. Just to let you know, how many people have done websites before? Yeah. Every time you think that you finalize it or got everything that you thought you wanted on there, something else pops up. It's a pretty interesting thing. Thank God for Janet, because I would be nuts. My ADD and my freaking whatever. Okay. Yeah. And when you have dyslexia, it's even worse. Okay. Security update. Right now, what's great, one thing that we always struggled with, especially when we had the outside contractor doing our security, is they always had trouble keeping people on payroll. Now that we bought that in-house, right now we have fully staffed. If we happen to lose someone, we're always able to, usually Mike's been pretty quick to be able to fill those locations. So we have a full security crew. So we have a rover out there constantly pretty much now. And then we also finished up the installation of the security fencing along Walnut Hollow, which I think will make a big difference from people creating easy access from East Fork into the Wanteska area especially. From a financial perspective, we're doing real well. Through October, we were $40,000 better than budget for the month of October, and now year to date. So hopefully, unless we screw up real bad, we should be able to meet the budget in the next 2 months. So with everything that's going on in the world economy and inflation and payroll and wage increases and everything else, we've been able to navigate our way through that to where we've actually looked like we're going to beat budget by the year end. So the other concern earlier this year was because we had no inventory, especially that our closings were behind going into April and May into the amenity fund. As of this month here in November, we'll have 7 more closings, which will hit our budgeted goal, which was 85 units for the year of 2023. So whatever we get in November and December will be, additional funds that we for over budget. So And currently there are 27 homes in some form of construction within Conisty. I think the record goes back into the crash year, like 2007 or 8. There was, I think, at one point 50 something units in a year. But historically, if you take that year out, it's been averaging only about 8 to 10. So, this has been a very busy year as far as construction goes. And, everyone who sees a different impact to that, I'm not sure we ever really want to do more than, 25 to 30 homes in a given year, to be honest with you. We've had opportunities where some of the bigger players have come in wanting to take down a bunch of lots and build a bunch of stuff quick, and we've turned that down. It's just, I don't think that's the market we want to be involved in. So from board initiative update, hopefully you all remember a couple months ago when the board got elected, they came up with 4 initiatives for the upcoming year. One of them obviously is Activity and Wellness Center construction, and I'll go a little bit more in detail on that for what I did before. The pool enhancement project, the community growth plan, which is, I see my esteemed leader back there, Mr. Hunter, is in charge of that group, where we're looking at what is the community really going to look like at build out, and how many units is that, and what's the financial impact of those decisions. And then one that's a very exciting topic, the CFPOA rules and regulation study, which will be another task force that's going to review and then hopefully rewrite some of the older language, duplicate language, confusing language within our rules and regs and bylaws and everything, so that we have everything seems to be more consistent. And if there's rules in there that don't make sense anymore or not enforceable, why are they in there? If anyone's ever had the time to read our full page of the rules and regs, I think Donna knows that number. Isn't it like 70 pages or something? It's a lot of pages. Yeah, it's a lot of pages of rules. So anyway, that will be another initiative that's going to be head up by Brian O'Neill on the board. He'll be the board liaison for that group. And I think they're getting ready to form that group here in the next month or so. So where are we with the activity and wellness project? As we talked about, the infrastructure for the site is being done. Obviously, you all approved it back in September. We sent out bid packages to 5 general contractors in the North Carolina, and then also 2 in South Carolina, all firms that had the capability and ability to do a project of this size. Out of those 5, 2 of them submitted packages. The other 3 through the process either relatively quickly or at the end did not submit packages. The good news on that is that the 2 that submitted are both locals, one out of here in Brevard and one of them in Hendersonville. Both of them more than qualified to do the project. So we have 2 good options, and we're in the Chips here, our FPC chair. We met with one of them again this morning. We've now met with both of them to go over their packages, and we had some questions and comments and concerns on some of the different things in the package to make sure we're all on the same page. We're hoping to have a recommendation to the board probably the first week of January to who we would like to work with on this project. And hopefully the board will agree with those recommendations. So we'd like so that we have our team together for the building project. We are still finalizing. We only went to about 50% construction drawings because we didn't want to spend money before we knew what the vote on the Activity Wellness Center would be. So our architect is completing those now, and he'll have those done by the end of December, first week of January, which will then allow us to get a full firm price, because we'll be at more than 90% complete on our construction drawings. The goal would be to continue site work with our crew, and then the first crew starting maybe first week of February, where we'd actually be doing finishing up the site work, then hopefully starting vertical construction shortly thereafter of what we call the freeze and frost season. So hopefully by first part of March, we would start going vertical. That is the goal. That is one difference between the 2 contractors. It's a time lag between start to finish. There's a 2 or 3 month difference between when one says they can get complete and the other says they may be able to get complete. So those are some of the issues we're talking about with them right now. So either way, the project should be complete by end of 2023 or early part of 2024. So where are we with the pool project? When we separated the two projects for this vote in September, we had told you we'd all come back sometime in the fourth quarter or first quarter of 2023 to come and present a pool enhancement project. And we are still working on that timeframe. We actually have a, what do you want to call it, Chip? A layout, design and layout that we know will fit and will work. But we're working with the designer and the contractor to come up with both a full site plan and then a rendering, obviously, as well. It would have the same components that we talked about before, which is a larger enhanced pool experience with multiple lap lanes, a separate covered lap pool for year-round swimming and exercise classes, totally redoing and moving the bathhouse area, a little splash zone park for the kids, and then a larger, more covered social areas around the bigger deck area around the whole pool area as well. So again, we still hope to have this presented to you the first quarter of 2023. So what is the community growth management plan? What are they doing? Well, the build out task force was charged was approved in September by the board and given to our fearless leader, Dave Hunter, who's doing that. They've met a couple times, and I think they meet next week again. And they have started the initial planning. And what they're really looking to do is define the key project deliverable and due dates. That's always the first task of any committee. Review all of our governing documents and guidelines that we talk about some of this already in the comprehensive master plan, the facility master plan, or strategic plan, and our financial projections. Putting all those together and saying, okay, what do we want to be when we finally grow up and become a full build out community? I think it's going to take a while. I don't know what day is saying, but I think it's going to be into the middle of next year before we have a presentation of some sort to bring to the community to discuss their findings. Does that sound reasonable, Dave? Middle? Preliminary. Okay. Preliminary by mid-year, completion by end of year. The rules and regulations study, what are they going to do? Like we mentioned, they're going to look at the rules and regulations of the entire community. Again, review all the documents to make sure that they all are consistent and not duplicating and or overlapping each other. So that will be, I think that will be a longer process. I think they had, maybe some people in this room have been here for a while. They had a committee do this years ago, and I think it was a long time. If you look at 70 or 80 pages and then compare them to the bylaws and figure out which one's overriding which, it takes the people, everyone with their input, but then it takes someone like Janet or someone like an editor type person that can actually have the time. Now, I'm not saying I'm not volunteering you. But it takes a lot of effort to make sure that you put, what you're putting together is not only right, but not any worse than what it was before. You know what I mean? So, but I'm sure Brian's putting a good team together that will work on that. The Natural Resource Committee has been very busy. They meet every 2 weeks, pretty much. And where they are currently is we've collaborated with the trail builders and the trail stewards, and we've agreed upon a enhanced hiking trail signage plan that we hope to implement probably the first quarter of 2023, where we go through, I forget which trails we're going to start on. Do you remember? Okanot? I can't remember, but it will be not all at the same time. We'll start with the trail stewards have put together the list of the trails that have either no signage or the worst signage, and those will be the first ones, and then we'll work our way around. But it'll probably be a 1 to 2 year deal by the time we start to finish on that, I would think. You wouldn't be surprised on 20 miles of trail how many little signs and heads and stuff there are. So, and then we also want to come up with a consistent, dedicated trail head sign that you'll see along the roadways as well. Nothing huge, but at least be consistent through the community as well. And now it have your basic information, your basic hiking information on those. If anyone doesn't know, all the trails are on our website now on a GIS website, so you can download those onto your phone as well, which is a nice thing to have also. The hemlock treatment point, well, actually, let me go back. I skipped it. Hopefully, a lot of you, some of you, maybe all of you filled out the survey that the Natural Resource Committee sent out. They got great participation in that. and a lot of feedback, and they're just at the very initial stage of coordinating all that information and determining what they're going to do with it. But there's some great information in there. And we'll be giving more information on that later. The hemlock treatment throughout the community is going along very well. I think we're well over 13 or 1400 hemlock trees. Is that give or take? We just have, there's about another 70 or 80 that I just contracted out with Bartlett that need the stem injection, that are either too close to streams or too hard to get to. Like they may actually need some people on ropes to get to them. So we did not have the talent in-house to do that, where we've done most of them in-house. These we had to subcontract out, and those hopefully will be done by the end of this month. So that'll probably get us closer to 1400. And I think the Hemlock Friends, who've been helping the private property owners, I think they've done over, Graham's not here, but I think over 90 to 100 individual residential units as well, where they'll come on site to your home, determine if in fact you do have hemlocks, and if so, they'll look at the health of them, and if so be it, they need to be treated. They'll do that for you at a very, very reasonable rate. We're basically providing the chemicals from the POA at our cost, and then they just do a minor upcharge on that. I think it's less than like $20 a tree. It's something really cheap. It's $20 to $25 normally per tree, so it's a lot less expensive than if you had to if you wanted to have Bartlett or one of the big companies come in and treat your trees for you. And then they are continuing to develop the natural resource stewardship plan. They do have an inventory pretty much, I don't want to say done, but there's been some back and forth between the committee and the contractor to get that report. They sent out the draft. We've sent all our comments in, and now we're going back and forth with comments until we get the preliminary final, I guess we call it. So hopefully a few months we'll have that as well. So this is just some information on the survey itself that went out. So we have been able to benchmark a lot of preferences and priorities that the members talked about. We had 713 completed surveys, and we did send this survey out to everyone on our email list, not just the voting members. So this went out to everybody within Coniston Falls. So it was sent out to 2,550 people within that live. This will be, statistically, if you look at that, completion rate will be plus or minus, 3% margin of error. We talked about the committee is starting to analyze the data, which is easy, but then reviewing, I forget how many you put on here, how many open-ended comments there is, hundreds, right? Over 1,000, yeah. So we're trying to group those into sort of same categories. So, they might have all said it differently, but they're pretty much the same thing. So we're going to try to do that. So that will help us understand that a little better. So all those things will help us benchmark and create better guidance for our future actions on the natural resource. But we can definitely determine between pretty much any survey we've done, whether it's the member survey we did a few years ago, whether it's a new buyer survey do every year, or this survey that we just sent out to the current owners. Our natural environment and resources is definitely a hot topic and something that everyone cares about within the community. The Facility Planning Committee, they are continually working diligently with me on both the activity wellness and the pool. And then obviously have some oversight on the equestrian center, the Cherokee room we talked about, the fencing. And then obviously there is a lot of information from the strategic plan a survey done last year that they had we had a bunch of comments on other things people might like to see within the community, and the Facility Planning Committee is reviewing those comments and notes that the strategic plan committee sent to them, determine if and when any of those other ideas are feasible or not. We talked about the Watercraft rental agreement. Not much to go into detail, but we just are changing it to where the rules and the regs are going to be on the back of the sheet, the rental agreement sheet that they sign. The way it reads now is you have the form that you fill out for your rental agreement, but the rules and regs are in the rules and regs that nobody goes to. So we updated that, changed those around, and then put them on the back of the form where the people sign and say, hey, I read and understood what I'm doing here, which I think will give us a little bit more leverage and teeth to enforce those going forward So everybody who has a slip in 2023, we'll bill you, but before we bill you, you're going to be required to sign that form and say that you've read it and signed it and you understand what you're doing. So that will be the biggest change. Because lately, years we've always just automatically rebuild everybody, and that's it. So now you're going to have to re-up yourself every year. I can go into all these details if you want, but I think that pretty much states it. So the opportunity that Brent mentioned in our agenda is there is two pieces of property that actually abut our property. One of them is 20 acres and one of them is 30 acres. And the Taylor family, who's a known family in the community, has owned this property for quite a long period of time. The 20 or 21 acre piece basically abuts our walking track and tennis court area, and it touches our boundaries on 3 sides, this 21 acre. If you look at this little chart, you'll see the reality is we don't even know if our walking path is actually on our property. Part of it might be on his property. This property has never been surveyed, and that's part of the due diligence that's going on right now, is that any potential sale of that property to us would be at a $15,000 an acre per price, and that would be based on what the actual survey shows up. And to give you some reference point, we've been talking to I don't want to say Tom, but we've been going back and forth with the Taylor's broker. I can give his name, it's a public record, right? Who is Billy Harris. I'm sure a lot of you know who Billy Harris is. So he does all the land negotiations for the Taylor family. I remember 4 years ago when I first got here, I met up with him. And so this has been on the radar, but it's never been, originally they wouldn't give us a price at all. Then they gave us a price of $25,000 an acre. Then we said no. Then they gave us a price of $20,000 an acre. We said no. Now we're at 15, which we think is a relatively fair price based on the fact that this land is, like I say, touches our boundaries on all 3 sides and has future potential growth if need be. Because on the top, just giving that perspective, it's basically right up above the tennis courts where the water tower is up here, where that little Okinawa trail and the road, the asphalt road that goes up, that Carolina Water uses to go up to their water tower. If and when you ever want to do a walk up there, once you get up top, it is really flat, a large area of flat buildable land up there. And not saying we will build anything or we're planning on building anything, but if you think about the fact that we're going to have potentially 25% more residents in the community that are here now, I'm not taking Dave's thunder, but realistically, we're probably going to end up at about 1,800 units in here. And we have about 1,400 now. You're talking, almost a 28% increase in people. So at some point, whether it's whatever it is, pools, bocce courts, pickleball courts, tennis courts, clubhouse, whatever, you're going to need areas to expand at some point someday. But to me, this is more important to just be what I call a boundary play, to make sure that you're controlling your own destiny and what's going to abut right up to your property lines. So what we're doing at this point, and just like I told you, this is what's great about this piece of property, is it's centrally located to where most of our amenities are already. We did talk to the finance committee about the purchase, and if we were to move forward on the purchase, they would recommend taking the money out of the amenity fund, which is why the amenity fund is there. So this is not anything we have to borrow money to do. It would require a member vote. In our declaration, very clear that any addition of adding real estate to our boundaries would require a member vote. So we would do that next if we decided to move forward. But what we have done in the meantime is we have a letter of intent out to the Taylor family with basically $1,000, lack of a better word, earnest money, and a due diligence period into March of next year, which would basically allow us time to do our own due diligence, talk to the membership about whether they have interest in this or not, and then still be able to potentially do a vote and give an answer to them within that time period. So we have signed that. They have not signed that yet. We've been in discussion with Billy. We feel pretty confident they are going to sign it, but officially they haven't signed it yet. But we'll keep you updated on that as well. But once it's signed, what we would like to do is have another meeting or two with the community probably, well, we picked one date already, right? January 9th, I think it is. Is that right? Yeah. So we'll have another community meeting, January 9th, that will be specific to this opportunity to discuss whether we feel that we need to move forward on it and have the members vote on this possibility. So that's where we are in this opportunity in this property. Well, I got a little ahead of myself. That's why the date's there. Okay. January 9th, and let's assume we have the meeting and it appears that a lot of people support this possibility. We would go out to a vote on January 16th. Our vote will require 30 days like all voting does, which would bring us to the 15th. We'd announce the outcome of that member vote, and then we'd have to sign the agreement and finalize the contract with the Taylor Group on or before March 20th. So we'll be interested to hear your feedback when we get to the Q&A today on that. Rental property. We've had this come up, but we get this both myself individually, the board members get it. I know it's come up quite a few times in our board meetings as well, the public meetings, about concern about, short-term rentals. How does it impact property values? How does it impact lifestyle, your lights leaving on, your noises, all the different things. So we have done some investigation on it. We've talked and decided that what are some of the other communities doing in the area? Some of what's been happening is some surrounding communities have formed rental committee groups to further analyze the rental issues and determine whether there is an issue or not, and what they could or potentially not do about it. One interesting one is right down the road from us at Sherwood Forest. They implemented a rule, or they changed their bylaws and declaration to say that going forward, anyone who purchases a home in Sherwood Forest has to wait at least 3 years to rent their property out. Now, what that does, it doesn't impact the people that already owned in Sherwood. Those people that were renting units in Sherwood could continue to do that because they purchased their home under that intent based on the bylaws and declaration that they purchased into, and you can't take those rights away once those people had purchased. The other interesting thing that came about with that is, we asked, well, what would the pushback be on the residents, the people that were already there? And the reality is, by almost putting that moratorium on new rentals, the people that have rental property actually were in favor of it because it made their rental property more valuable because they don't have any people competing with them for 3 years. So, we're not saying we're going to do that, but it was an interesting concept that we found out, actually Brent found out about when he talked to their leader of that committee. So we are looking at different opportunities and different options as far as rentals. But the interesting thing is when you actually run the numbers, what are we really dealing with? And we'll get into that in a minute. But the issues that we deal with from an administration and operation standpoint is basically the complaints that we get in on a, week-to-week basis. And a lot of times you can't really solve them because by the time you know about it, the people are gone already. So, especially a 3 or 4 day rental. And they're the simple one: noise, obviously, lights on after the 11 o'clock rule. A lot of people that aren't familiar with the mountains in your community, no one even thinks about leaving the lights on, their porch light on or whatever. So that one is probably one of the most popular ones that we get complaints on. And then parking along the streets and obviously open fires are the 4 main topics. What we do now is we have a single page rules and regs handout that specifically talk about what we'd call these 4 big issues, because these are where most of the complaints come from. So we're even though they have to follow all the rules and regs, we're trying to highlight the ones that get the most attention so that we can try to minimize those complaints. So they're getting that every time they check in. So I can't take credit for this, but Brent has taken the opportunity to review the August, September, and October data. I know he got the November data as well, but we haven't updated that for this presentation. But I don't think it changed the numbers drastically, right, Brent? Like a couple, 0.2% or something. So we looked at is August, September, October. There's basically 86 homes within the community that were actively renting, representing 5.99 or 6% of all homes of 1435. And out of those 86, 79 of them were short-term rentals, which you were quoting as less than a week. Is that what you're considering short-term? 90 days, less than 90 days. So that's actually less than what I had been telling people. I always thought it was more like 8 to 10%. But what we find here is there's a few units that really haven't figured out. I mean, they're like one house that will do 10 or 12 in a month. I mean, they're pushing people in for 2 days, pushing that people out, getting next people in that night. So how they coordinate that with their cleaners and everyone else, I have no idea. But so there's a few that take, I think the biggest month was August was 155, right? And one of those units had like 12 within, and there like 5 units of the 155 were like 20% of the total. So there's definitely some investors who figured out how to really, push the people through and get them in and out. So, but those are the numbers that we're talking about. And this is a breakdown of the 3 months combined. So you'll see that August, September, October, 411. The number of days rented, if you added them all up, is 4,330, 86 distinct properties. And you'll see all the other information there as well. So interesting numbers. I don't know what it means yet. I don't know if any of us know exactly what it means yet, but at least some data that we can start with and determine what we're going to do with it. And we're going to continue to update these on a monthly basis in Excel, because August is a good month because summer month. October is a good month because we got a lot of leaf season people that come. But what we'll find here in November, December, January, these numbers are going to crash because we don't do a lot of rentals in January. This is not the greatest place to come in January or February. Hate to say that, but I love staying here when no one's here, but people aren't going to visit for what we have to offer in January and February. So what's the next steps? So the board is going to continue to explore and consider the concept of making a rule that new homeowners, cannot rent their homes for 3 years. That's one option. We're going to get member input and feedback, encourage. And then obviously any changes that we would make to our governing documents, again, would require a vote of the members before we could implement it and move forward. So this is just sort of a stay tuned, more information to come. Wow. And that is my presentation for today. So we would love to take some questions and comments, and we will go from there. Like I said, if you could go up to the microphone, that would. Anyone? Your? Oh. 1, 2. All right, well, we'll all be available up here if anyone wants to have a question or comment afterwards. That'd be fine too. For everyone in the room, thank you for coming out. And for everyone in the room, anyone who's on Zoom, how many people do we have zoomed in, Robert, by the way? 40. Okay. So the 40 of you out there, thank you very much. And we'll see you at the next meeting.
The things that we're looking into, like the rental properties, let us know the Watercraft process that we're putting in place. So your feedback's important.